Ready? How you doing? My name is Zane Dill.
I'm Mary Beth Gilliland.
This is our group project for our education class 620, the group assessment plan. All right, for the introduction, how do we access students to check for mastery of skills? We use assessments with a variety of test items. There's 4 different assessments that we'll go through, which are true, false, matching, multiple choice, and completion. And the first step to assessing students is to choose which format or blended format you want to use. You will notice during this presentation that many teachers in education that they use multiple different ways of doing their test, and sometimes they will put a bunch of these together during a test for their certain format that they have.
Okay, the first one we're going to talk about is true false. True false questions are popular, and the main reason is because they are easy to write. They're just simple one sentence, true or false your answer. They're quick and easy, so they're very popular to be used. But there are things that can make true false questions difficult. You want to admit some words because they can become confusing, like always, all, never, only, items like that, because sometimes when you say things just with talking, you say it always, it's not necessarily true, so it makes it a confusing question. So you may want to switch and use words like tend, some, could, or rarely. True false questions will only have 2 answers, like I mentioned above. You either are the answer is going to be true or false. This gives students a higher chance to get the question correct. While this can be good for students, but it's not always a true picture of what the students know, because they can guess. So there are ways that you can reduce guessing. If a student has decides to put false on an answer, then you may have the student revise and correct that question to make it true, so that you can see that the students actually know that it is false. And then, as I said, the students need to mark the section of the question that is false. That way you're seeing that they truly know that that question is false. There are some tips and suggestions to help make sure true and false questions are smooth, and you can give you a broader view of what the students know. They should be, of course, all completely true or false. That's why we're avoiding the words like always, never, only, because then you're being able to see that those are completely true and false. Don't make them too long. Use short statements so that it's not, that lowers the chance of you adding things in there that you shouldn't. Try to have close to the same amount of true and false answers, so that a student, if there are a lot of true or a lot of false, a student may think that they are incorrect on some. Don't use double negative statements. That just confuses students. Do not use anything directly from the text. That is either going to make a student question the answer or know for sure it's true because they've read it. And avoid using verbal cues, absolutes, and context clues. And then over here, you can see a sample test question. You can see that all these statements are short statements and to the point, and students just simply mark true or false on each one of them.
All right, for the next part, matching. They're equally as popular as true false questions. Some people will blend them together. They might do some true false, they might do some matching. It does not always say mastery of skills correctly. The students can eliminate answers to determine questions, and it's best when used for assessments on vocabulary or items similar. The matching tips and suggestions. Keep the descriptions and options short, just to help out with clarity and students' understanding. Descriptions should be on the left, while options are on the right side. The descriptions should be numbered and options should be identified. You need to make sure you include more options than descriptions. This will cut down on the process of elimination by students. Again, I'll touch on the matching part of, most time you want to have it on the left side, and you will have those numbered, and then you will have the answers to correlate with those, with each number as letters. And so you will plug that letter into whichever number that it matches.
Okay, here's a matching activity to show some of those tips and suggestions, why they're important. So the exercise is just to look at the table below and identify any problems. So we would look at how everything's made on, we've got column A here and B here. And I'm just going to go over a few of these so when we talk about on the next slide, we'll know what we're talking about. The options are Lincoln, Nixon, Whitney, Ford, Bell, King, Washington, and Roosevelt. And just by knowing those names, we know those are some presidents, some inventors, and some civil rights activists. And then our answers on the other side, for examples like the president during the 20th century and things like that. So when we go to our next slide, we're going to see some things that were wrong with that activity. It lacks homogeneity. The presidents, inventors, and civil rights leaders, there's too much of a variety. We're using too many things as our answers. And then we got the wrong order list. It's Zane mentioned on the previous slide that you want to put your items in column A, your answers in on the last slide, the items in column A and B need to be swapped because it's confusing to the students. And then there's the same number of descriptions as there are options, so it's easy for the students to guess. If they don't know one, they can just eliminate all the other ones and pick the correct one. And the directions, all the directions say were match A and B. There needs to be more details for that one. And then there's too many correct responses. And as I mentioned, the very first one said just the president in the 20th century. There were 3 answers that could have been for the president in the 20th century. So it was just a little too confusing for students.
Okay, the next part is multiple choice. Multiple choice tests are the most time consuming whenever teachers are putting them together. There's a lot of different options they have as far as, putting the question in, and then you also have to have 4 different answer choices. It measures comprehension at a high level of educational objectives. You will notice, I think anybody that's took tests has definitely took a multiple choice test, and the majority of tests that you will see are multiple choice, even though they are very time consuming. The tips, be sure there's only one correct answer and avoid using all of the above. It mentions in the text that, you want to avoid using all of the above because the majority of the time when you have all of the above as an option, that is usually actually the answer. Okay, the next one is completion. These are relatively easy to write. The items require a single word answer. The blank space provided should preferably be towards the end of the sentence. And tips for that, you need to omit only keywords from the blank spaces. That way it's kind of easier for the student or whoever's taking that test to be able to figure out what exactly that blank space will be. And maybe if you'll just click on this completion quiz right here for a second. I'm not necessarily going to go through it, and we're not really going to sit here and go through the whole test. See if you can enter it in there. Yeah, this just shows some examples of the completion test. Will it let you click start? This will just show a quick example of what a completion completion part would look like. Blue is a color. Okay, so that's just very easy and descriptive. And we can go through one more. All right, boys and girls are men, children, women. Okay, and that would be children. Okay, it's just very descriptive and to the point that you just need to make sure you have a blank towards the end of whatever the statement is. Russia is a country, a street, a continent, or a city. All right, that would be a country. But anyways, but I just wanted to kind of go through that real quick. That was only like a 10-question quiz, but I just wanted to use that as an example for that.
Okay, and then here is the, my screen is showing. Okay, so here is the rubric. It went to get my, sorry. Okay, so for the rubric, if you can just fill out the rubric to give us some feedback. Some of the questions on the rubric are: the instructor shows true knowledge of the content covered, the objectives of the meeting were covered, and then there's some written portions at the bottom just to give us some feedback to let us know how we can improve. And then our last slide is some references. These are some of the quizzes, like the one we just went over, some of the examples we used, and then one of the activities we did, the references to cover those. But that is what we had for our recording.